Hello, boys and ghouls. Irish Blackstone here with another episode of Behind the Keyboard. Today, my guest is Amy Grech. Amy has sold over 100 stories to various anthologies and magazines, including Apex Magazine, Flashes of Hope, Fright, Mare, Hell's Heart, Hell's Highway, Hell's Mall, Punk Noir Magazine, Thriller Magazine, Tales from the Lake Volume 3, and many others. She's also an active member of the Horror Writers Association and the International Thriller Writers Association. Enjoy. Okay, so Amy, thank you so much for coming on today. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you for having me. Flattered to be here.
Oh, don't say flattered. I'll get a big head. It'll go to my head and I'll think I'm important now.
Oh, well, then I'll say I'm thrilled to be here. How about that?
Yeah. Everyone says that. It's a stock standard answer, and that's better.
I was trying to get away from the standard a little. That's why. But.
Oh, don't worry. I mean, I don't know if you've interacted with a lot of Australians, but yeah, we're not stock standard at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, a few other authors virtually. I have so.
Okay, so you're used to us.
A little bit, yeah. In
Okay.
a good way. Yeah.
Okay, so you've got about 100 short stories, released into the wild. And when I was researching you, I couldn't find a lot of novels. So what the big question I've got is, why do you focus more on short stories than the bigger stuff?
Sure. Because when I first started writing, I just was gravitating towards the shorter form. And I've been more comfortable with that in my 20 plus year career as a writer. But I do also have a couple of novellas published. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately for you, but fortunately for me, my previous publisher, I terminated my contract with them. I'm going to take the high road here. I'm not going to name names. Okay. But it means that two of my novellas are now free to be edited before I submit them to other publishers. One is a crime fiction novella set in New York City. And that was a fun one to write. It was half set in my old neighborhood of Park Slope, Brooklyn. And then I had to move to a different part of Brooklyn. And Bay Ridge was my last neighborhood in Brooklyn. Very different neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my stories do take place in New York City.
Okay. Well, I've never been, actually. The only places I've traveled outside of Australia has been Mexico, a brief visit to San Antonio, Orlando, and LA. So I don't know anything about New York, especially Brooklyn.
Oh, so it's a treasure trove of both debauchery and culture. More debauchery in the old days. Well, now it would be considered the old days, like the 70s, 80s, early 90s. Mm-hmm. For example, I was doing research for one of my novellas titled Rage and Redemption, Alphabet City, which was the title story from my collection, which is now, like, I have print copies I can sell and hopefully get more money for that I have
That's a great title. That's a great title there.
Yeah. Yeah, it really just sums up the novella, and it's set in New York City, Alphabet City. Actually, what fascinated me, a lot of things about Alphabet City is there are avenues A, B, C, and D. And I actually Googled the history because I'm like, that has to mean something. It can't be random. And it actually does. It means A for aware, Avenue B for beware, Avenue C for caution, and Avenue D for death. And the characters in my story live on Avenue D. And so at the time I had a full-time job. Now I'm a freelancer. I do digital content, online marketing is my day job. But I had a day off. This was back like 20 years ago almost now. And I went to Alphabet City, East Village, took the subway from Brooklyn. And it was all condos and co-ops. It wasn't dark and gritty and seedy anymore. And I needed it to be dark and gritty and seedy. So I just looked for some photos from like the 70s and the 80s online on Google. And sometimes real world research doesn't always pan out the way we like.
Yeah, no, I get that. And okay, so most of your stories set in New York. Now, you also are a member, apart from being a member of the Horror Writers Association, you're also a member of the Thriller Writers Association.
Yes.
Now, there is a very good, like a very close crossover between a horror story and a thriller story. And for me, it's a thriller. If somebody, if the main character lives, it's a thriller. If he dies, yeah, it's a horror. That's how I look at it.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, okay, good. Why both? Because looking at you, you do straddle that line as you do write horror, but you also write thriller.
Yes. And sure. Well, because I don't want to say I felt that I had exhausted all of the storylines in horror, but and this is a true fact. I don't know if you know Discovery ID. It's a channel on cable here in New York, in the United States.
Never heard of it.
And so there's a lot of true crime stories on this channel. And I wouldn't watch it every night, but before COVID, if I wasn't going out with friends and I had a long day at work, I would just eat dinner in front of the TV. And there's just a lot of true crime stories that are really horrific and you wouldn't believe they actually happened. And so that sort of got my mind going and saying, well, why don't I play with that? And that's where Rage and Redemption and Alphabet City came into play. And a lot of other stories. I have a new crime story, a flash piece online at, what is it? Hold on, there's so many things I'm doing. I actually have a cheat sheet, isn't that crazy? Punk Noir magazine online. They published another short, also set in the East Village, entitled Blossom. And it has a dual meaning. I don't want to spoil it. But related to that, I'm doing a virtual reading online at Punk Noir at the Bar on, I think it's called, what is it, Crowdsource? I forget all these platforms. But there's a link on my website and blog and my Twitter. It's on June 29th at 8 p.m. I believe it's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have to check on that because the people doing it are in England. So I might be for a rude awakening if I don't double check that.
The time zone differences can get, let's say, fun in dealing with all this sort of stuff. I was
emailing you and then you said the first time I gave you like, oh, it's like the middle of the night for me. Like, oh, I'm sorry. That was better.
It was 3 a.m. And honestly, for me, I had no problem with that. As I said, I'm stuck in a hotel room by myself. So it's,
But it's just kind of like manners, like for me.
True. Yeah,
that's
true.
Why.
Oh, no.
I don't want to turn you into an insomniac or fuel that. Unless you're into that. Some people like right in the middle of the night.
No, I like sleeping. I do like sleeping.
Yeah, so there you go. I did you a favor by changing it.
Yes.
So it all worked out.
Yes, it definitely did. And so, I mean, you probably get asked more about the horror stuff than you do the thriller stuff, whenever you're interviewed, right? That's like going through reading other interviews with you. I did notice that people do focus more on the horror side of it. So, I mean,
that's true.
Which understandable, but I've read a lot of thrillers. I've read a lot of crime books, and majority of them are set in New York. So, what is it about New York that kind of lends itself to thrillers and crime novels and just noir in general?
Well, yes, New York City has a rich history. There was the mob in its heyday. I think that was like the 70s. Who was the Gambino was one of the mob bosses. They made a movie about another mob boss.
Gotti. It was John Gotti was the other big one. Yeah.
Yes. So that would be one component, and then another back to the 1970s. I was a wee lass. I was a child in the 70s, but I read about it, and there was like a lot of graffiti. There was a lot of crime in the 70s in New York City. There was a lot of murders. There was the Son of Sam killer, and then they just had a series on Netflix, and they claim it was more than one person. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I kind of, with COVID, I got trapped down the rabbit hole of true crime documentaries.
Yeah,
and I mean,
it's morbidly fascinating, aren't they?
Yes, it is. That's actually the perfect way to describe it. It is morbidly fascinating. But the other thing is, it just surprises me that, okay, I write basically, creature features, cosmic horror, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I kind of go out there with all that stuff. And then, you sit down and you watch something like, The Sons of Sam, and you sit there going, I got nothing.
Yeah. It's like words fail me. And then there was another story, another true life incident, rather, that I first heard about. I grew up on Long Island, which is like the suburbs.
Yep.
And so I mentioned it because I was able to take an intro to psychology class in high school, which I thought was cool. Yeah, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Kitty Genovese murders. It happened. Yeah,
he was another mobster, wasn't he?
Oh, no, sorry, it's a woman, Kitty Genovese. You're right, there is a Genovese family. Yeah. So I'll clarify for this little anecdote. So it was all about, she lived in Queens, and she was coming home late alone after a night out with friends. And a man attacked her right in front of her building. And it was one of those buildings, a lot of buildings in New York City have a courtyard. And people could see out, and she was like screaming for help because there were no iPhones back then. What did we do before our smartphones, right? But so excuse me, it turns out that everyone in the apartment complex thought that someone else had called the ambulance or the police, so no one did anything.
Oh geez.
Yeah. And I actually worked that into another story of mine that's not published yet. It's called Prevention. That also has a dual meaning. It's a set of twins, identical twins. One is an evil twin, and one is the good twin.
But isn't that how it always is?
I know, right? I actually am a twin. I have a twin brother.
Oh, so is he the evil one, or is it you?
My mother likes to refer to me as the good twin. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
But I worked the Kitty Genovese story into that story because the main character is a woman, an old woman. It's these twins' mother. And I don't want to spoil too much, but when she's in a situation alone with the bad twin, she says, well, the city used to be really unsafe, and there was the whole Kitty Genovese murders, and because the bad twin has the mother locked up in a basement, and she's trying to scream, and he's like, well, no one can hear you. And she's like, yeah, that's right. It's just like the Kitty Genovese murder, and no one heard her, or they did, but they didn't do anything. And I'm more eloquent in the story about it.
Yeah.
It was fun how I could drop that into a story.
Yeah, that's a for those who know about that murder, it's a good little Easter egg. And
yeah, exactly.
So it's obvious why you're drawn to horror, but what is it about thrillers that kind of gets your attention, that makes you go, yes, I want to write those?
Yeah. Well, the band guy in thrillers, they tend to be more complicated in crime or thrillers or noir. And I'll say, like, I don't know if you have Showtime in Australia. Oh, yep. Did you ever see Dexter?
Yes.
Show Dexter? That's a good example. He's like a blood pattern analyst for his day job, and then he's also murders these people, and then he creates the murder room with the plastic, and it's all really carefully planned.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I like to play with that dynamic, similar to that. Like I'm not copycatting the Dexter plot or anything, but it's as an example.
Oh yeah, no, I really loved Dexter, and I read the first book, and I hated the actual book. I preferred the show.
It's funny. I didn't read any of the books, but
I read the first book, and this was after the first season came out. So I heard it was based on a book. I read the first book, and I was like, "What the hell?" The book goes more towards like supernatural horror a little bit in regards to certain things, and it's just like, "What the hell?" And I watched Dexter all the way through, and then that final season, I just sat there, for that very last episode, just sitting there going, "Oh, get fucked!" Like they really kind of screwed it up.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so So you like writing thrillers because it's more the bad guy is more complicated.
Yes, for the
Okay.
most part. Or bad woman. I
Yeah.
have a couple of stories where the antagonist is a woman, actually.
Okay, so
And as a good side note, I have a story in this anthology. Oh, I've got my blur on. Well, I guess I could take off. Well, all right. Well,
there you go. The one that got away.
The one that got away. It's from Candisha Press. And what's unique about this anthology is all the contributors are either female or identify as female.
Okay.
Over 300 pages. And my story in the book has the female antagonist. And my offering is called Cold Comfort. It's set in New York City during a snowstorm. Well, some of it's outside in the snowstorm, and it starts at a bar, and this guy picks up the wrong woman. And I play, yeah, I know, but then it diverges a lot from that, because that's not unique. I play a lot with S&M. So the main character's name is Sadie O'Grady, and the guy is Jack Massick. So there you have S&M, right?
Yep.
And then there's a lot happens with rope, like literal rope in the bedroom.
Yep.
And then at the end, I don't want to give away the ending, of course, but it was very, very fun to write.
Okay. And so you've just set us up now for the biggest loaded question for an interview.
Okay.
So you wrote this story about S&M. How much research did you do?
Well, it's funny you should ask. My day job, I had a couple of clients who are not on my portfolio. One of them lived in one of my neighborhoods. I lived in Greenpoint, which was near Williamsburg. It was my grandmother's apartment, so I got it really cheap. I did what's called succession rights, so the rent was really cheap. But anyway, so I put a flyer in the subway, and it's kind of corny, but it worked. It said, like, need a website in a jiffy, count on me to make it spiffy. And it had my email. And this woman who happens to be an artist and a dominatrix answered my ad. So I built a website. This was before WordPress and CMS sites. So I built an HTML website for her. And her handle or her name was Decadent Diva. So she would tell me stories about how a lot of her clients were lawyers and doctors because they have to be in control for their day job. And then she treated me to dinner in an S&M club in the East Village. We're going back to the East Village. And we just had dinner, but she had a client from France. And you know that leather mask with the zipper?
Yep.
It was dead of summer. It was humid, but he had the mask on the whole time. Well, he had like some water. And he bought us a nice expensive meal, and he had a collar and a chain, and he was being led around like a dog and getting off on it. So yeah,
that's one hell of a dinner.
It was. Actually, they had to close the place because some guy choked to death on the panties that the mistress was cramming down his throat or something. So I wasn't there when that happened, but I read about it. Or my dominatrix friend told me that. She was like, you know where we went? I forget what it's called now. And I was like, oh, well, that really sucks for many reasons. When I was there, they had a stage and they were pouring hot candle wax on some young man in front of everyone.
Okay, wow. The only thing I can say is it takes all sorts to move the world.
It does, yeah. So okay. That was the extent of my research, and then everyone basically knows what S&M is, you know, like who are adults, I'll say, let's clarify. We hope the children don't know what that is. Oh no,
I always set this to every interview when it goes on YouTube is set to be, not for kids.
Oh, okay, good, smart. I just wanted to, in case that wasn't the case.
No. I think if any kid is going to be watching this, they're going to grow up to either be a serial killer or to be a writer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And honestly, if any parent says, "Little Timmy, come and watch this show," then I know what family that is. That's the Mason family,
Right, yeah. Well, that leads into another funny story. For several conventions before COVID, I would have an author's table with other authors. You pay half or whatever for the price. And anyway, so this man comes up, and it was a different book. It was one of my collections, and he said, "Is this good for kids?" And then I lied and I said yes, and then he bought it. And then when he left, another writer who knew my work laughed and said, he said, "It's for my son Timmy," or whoever. And then the other writer and I had a good laugh, and she said, "Oh, Timmy's going to get quite an education because it had a lot of sex in it."
Hey.
And the kid was supposedly like 12, because you make small talk when you're autographing, and I'm like, "Oh, how old is your son?" And then I think the guy's like, he was 9 or 10.
You're never too late to learn the birds and the bees.
That's right. He got an early start. Excuse me. So.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, see, I'm actually relatively late to the whole being an author game. I started in 2018.
Oh, you're never too late. But
I've living in Mexico, there's not a big horror community in Mexico because they live it day to day.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's the thing. I used to teach English to businessmen in Mexico, and I gave class to the head editor of the Mexican division of Random House and Penguin.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah, and I thought, I got an in, and I mentioned, it came up in one of our classes that I write. He said, "Oh, what do you write?" I said, "I write horror," and he goes, "Yeah, that doesn't sell. That doesn't sell."
Oh,
and I said, "Well," he says, "let me rephrase. It doesn't sell in Mexico unless you're Stephen King, Edgar Allan Poe, or H.P. Lovecraft."
Oh yeah,
and
that's unfortunate, right?
Well, yeah, it was, and still is. And the follow-up question is, why? And he literally says, "Look out the window. Pick up any news."
There's a lot of crime there, I guess.
Well, not. There is a lot of crime in Mexico City, but it's more. You can pick up a newspaper, and you can look at the front page of a newspaper in Mexico, and in bright Technicolor, you're going to see a body with his head blown off by a shotgun.
Oh no, that was a suicide or not a suicide?
Cartel.
Oh, the drug cartel, right? Okay.
Yeah. So you've got the cartels.
The narcos.
Yeah, you got the narcos. You've got the fact that in Mexico, either there is no middle class. You're basically rich or you're poor, basically.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, and it's that thing of corruption is rampant and all this. There's like violence towards women is massive because it's a very macho country. And I'm not painting the best picture of Mexico with this.
No, I don't know if I want to go there now.
Oh no, it's great. Like the people are amazing, and if you're the hypocrisy is that they treat foreigners better. That's the hypocrisy.
Okay.
He's saying you all this sort of stuff. Like they've got the subway in Mexico City, and on certain days of the week you'll get trapped because someone's committed suicide. Jumping in front of it. Yeah, that sort of stuff. So, it's that sort of thing. And he said to me, "Look, all this happens here. So why do we want to pick up a book and read about it?"
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And I said to him, "Okay, so what does sell? Does romance sell?" He goes,
"No, I'd be curious.
No, romance doesn't sell. Crime, just regular thriller crime books, that sells." I'm like,
there you go.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does.
So yeah, so it's that sort of thing of picking your audience properly. But I mean, for me, my introduction to horror is R.L. Stine. I read that when I was about 8 years old. So I'm pretty sure little Timmy, who was 9 years old at the time, he's probably a diehard fan of the genre now.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe I got him young.
Yeah, and that's
young, trained him right.
Exactly. Hopefully that wasn't hopefully there's no S&M in that book because that could train him for something different.
Yeah, no, that was a different book, so no, there wasn't.
All right, little Timmy is safe then.
Not so little anymore. It was like over 10 years ago, but
okay, so little Timmy is now Big Timmy. Okay, fair. There's a mobster name for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So when it comes to writing, whether it's like a story for a submission or a story for your own collection or even a longer piece, how important is research for you?
It's very important. The other novella I mentioned earlier, the crime novella,
Yep.
I don't want to divulge the title because it's not published yet.
Okay.
But there's a lot that happens with guns in the story, and basically, again, the female protagonist kind of becomes an antagonist.
Okay.
At the end of the story, and what basically, I'll give you a little preview. This young woman is based on another real event, a real crime that happened in Park Slope. Because at the time I lived there, so I'd read the local news or on social media and what have you. And so this young woman was coming back alone again after a night out with friends, and this young man, he happened to be Hispanic, so I'm not being racist, but in this scenario, and he put a gun to her head, and somehow she got away. I forget how, but I looked up guns, and you can buy a conceal and carry Glock gun online, and yeah, and they have them with like coverings, like you get a case for your smartphone, and it has a covering. So these guns, you could get a skin on them, and one of them was like hot pink leopard print. So I'm like, oh, it's perfect for a woman. And so she names her gun, and that's the title of the story. But then one of my friends in real life said, well, you have to have this character get a gun permit in New York City, and then it takes 6 months, and it costs this amount of money. So I researched that, and I worked that into the story. I didn't go to a gun range, but I watched videos and the language on how to hold the gun, and like the kick and what the propellant smells like. And that gun ranges actually have fans that, like suck up the smell, because it's like, it smells like rotten eggs or something, if I recall.
Okay.
So, and just I did a lot of research about that, because I wrote a different story, a horror story with a gun, and I described the gun incorrectly. It was the kind of gun that didn't have a safety, and then in the story I said it had a safety. So It was published, but one of my writer friends said, yeah, you might want to change that if it ever gets reprinted. And I was so embarrassed, because, if a real police officer had read that, he'd be like, dude, that's so wrong.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Most of my stories usually have guns in it. Don't know why.
Oh, okay.
I've recently started writing more like military horror, 80s action horror, like Aliens and Predator style. So yeah, it needs to have guns.
Sure.
And I picked up a book put out by Writer's Digest, where it's basically, everything you want to know about guns for authors. And
wow.
and it was written by a author who also used to be a police officer. He knows his guns, and reading that, like the big one that kind of stuck out to me was the difference between a clip and a magazine, because that's the one everyone messes up.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't know. I would have to research that. So
yeah,
cool.
It's that sort of stuff. And and then in the back of it there was the index where it had these are the guns that are used by the military and the police, and if you're a private detective, this would be the sort of handgun you would use, and how to hold a gun, how to load a gun, all that sort of stuff. So it's like,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I really I loved it. It was a great book. I went back to it so much. Ex-wife kept it. Anyway, I gotta buy another copy of it. But
yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, it's on Amazon, and you can get from the Writer's Digest website. I can't remember the title, but if you want to know about guns, that's the book to go to. And that's the thing. I don't really do a lot of research. I go for very specific details.
Oh,
okay. I make sure a specific detail is 100% correct. And then, like if I get maybe five or six things that are just 100% correct, then the rest of the book can be completely out of like bullshit. No one's going to call me out on it.
Okay. That works.
Well, yeah, and I came to this conclusion because my very first book was set in Cuba, and I basically, got onto Google Earth, went to Havana on Google Earth, and basically just, I wrote a sequence where, how would you get from this point to this point? Did all the proper streets, all this sort of stuff. And I was like, that's really good. Never want to do that again.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
There was a lot in there. And, I was like, I was proud of myself of making sure everything was 100% correct. But I went, yeah, that's too much time, too much effort. And I got bored.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
So,
on a similar note, that reminds me, the excuse me, to go back to the novella Rage and Redemption, Alphabet City. I'll give you a little snippet of the plot, since it was published. Now I have the rights back. So it's actually loosely based on a very bad experience I had with eye surgery over 20 years ago. Yeah, it was for a crossed eye, which it's straightened out now, but like I was looking at my nose all the time. And I even got a second opinion. But long story short, after the surgery, I had a different problem, which is dry eyes. So I have to use like artificial eye drops, like a lot, and it costs a lot of money. And I tried to sue the surgeon, but they couldn't prove that it was 100% his fault. So I got a lawyer, and so I didn't get any money as restitution. So I got my revenge fictionally. And I make him this arrogant, the character's an arrogant doctor. And I did research on scalpels. And his weapon of choice is a scalpel, his murder weapon. And I actually did research, and when you kill someone with a knife or a razor, it's more personal than a gun, because you're in a closer proximity usually to the victim.
Yep.
Is one thing. And the other thing is, old-fashioned straight razors, and how they have a special handle. So I did that with the scalpel. And I don't know if it's 100% that you could get like a special handle as opposed to the plastic ones they use in surgery, or the metal that are all metal, titanium or whatever they use. I did, in the story, it's more accurate as to what metal they use, but they have like a 10 blade and then like the 15 blade. But I'm mentioning all this because when I, pre-COVID, I had a day job still, and I would write furiously notes in a little notebook that I always have with me. And someone was reading my notes on the subway and then started talking about scalpels to like the other person they were with on the morning commute. But it was for me, but they didn't know me, but they could tell, I guess I was smart enough. And then I wrote down the name of an article by a surgeon about scalpels. So isn't that wild?
That's actually really, man. See, you've mentioned the subway a couple of times, and I don't
drive, so that's okay. Why.
Okay, well that makes sense. But I mean, also in New York City, why would you drive? I mean,
I have a few friends who actually are insane enough to own cars, and then they have to pay all those expenses, and they have an apartment, but they're married, so they have a spouse.
Okay,
so on one income, but anyway.
Okay. Because, I mean, as I said, you mentioned it a couple of times, and I mean, I don't know. Everything I know about New York, I get from books and movies and TV shows, and they always kind of make the joke, the thing about how the subway can be very dangerous in New York. And I gather that's, timing, depends on time, depends on which line and all that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does. Like, for example, there were only a couple times I was out really late at night. And there was actually one time, like, I have the sixth sense that you develop from living in the city. And so it was before smartphones, but I would usually have a magazine with me or something to read if it was late at night. But I guess I was just like zoning out or like thinking something. And then this guy who looked really like dangerous walks up to me, and I don't think he spoke English, but he had like a bracelet and he couldn't get the catch on the bracelet on, and he wanted me to put it on for him.
That's a little sus.
It's very strange, right?
Yeah.
And then I did, and I was trying not to like be trembling, because it's like, where's this gonna go, right? It could have been like a lead in to just like grab my bag or whatever. And but it wasn't. And then one of us got off the train before the other, and that was the end of that. But there was a time during rush hour, back when I had a day job, I always carry a bag with me, and some women have the kind that go over their shoulder, not just a purse, but like a big bag.
Yep.
And actually at the time I did have one of those, but it was closed. And even though I had this big bag, it was winter, so I had like an overcoat on. And the guy, I presume it was a man, because I didn't look, but he was trying to get into my coat pocket. Women don't really carry their wallets in their coat pocket, whatever. But so I elbowed the person, and then luckily they stopped. It was like 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and it was rush hour, which means the train was packed.
Yeah.
So that was my, knock on wood, that was my only near miss.
Yeah.
With being robbed. I was actually burgled at my day job. I worked for Macy's at a department store, and I didn't have my own office, so it was like a cubicle situation. And someone went into the filing cabinet where I kept my purse. It didn't have a lock on it, and they stole like $200. They couldn't get my credit cards because I guess someone walked by and I was in a meeting or something. So after that, I got my manager to authorize I had to lock my file cabinet every time I went to get my purse or whatever.
Yeah.
And I told her they took $200, and it was like an entry-level job. I was like 24 at the time. She's like, how do you have that much cash on you? She's like a bitch. I'm like, because I was starting my web design business, so that's how. But anyway, I didn't tell her that.
Oh no, you never disclose the outside gig.
Exactly. But that was my only theft that I knock on wood that I encountered so far. Well, there was actually another time in the subway. Usually I'm really aware of the homeless people, but I was not feeling well, and I was after a long day of work, and the guy was sprawled out on the stairs. So I had to like look down at the stairs to not trip on him. He wanted money, and then I didn't obviously give him any, but started chasing me. But he didn't have money for the fare. There's a turnstile. You have to swipe a Metro card. And he didn't have, I thought he was still behind me there. I started running through the station. And of course the train wasn't coming yet. And I'm like, he was like screaming after me. He's like, I want some money, you bitch, or something like that. And then I was like, because when you're sick also and you're not thinking clearly, but it really happened. It's not like I hallucinated, but I told my friends, and they're like, oh boy, that's rough. But yeah.
See, you could turn that into a good horror story right there.
Yeah, maybe I will one day.
Okay, so I mean, I've got to ask this question because you're like one of the only New Yorkers I've spoken to since after living in a city where I've experienced like a subway system.
Okay.
Because here in Australia, because we're so spread out, like I'm in Sydney right now, and Sydney does kind of have a very, very small subway that's like, maybe 2 or 3 blocks kind of pointlessness.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's a pointless thing. In my hometown, Newcastle, where I'll be heading up to, we're a small country town basically, so we don't need it.
Oh, okay.
So the question I've got for you is this, and I've experienced it in Mexico on the subway in Mexico City. When it comes to peak hour, rush hour traffic in New York, do they forget the laws of physics when they try to get onto the metro, onto the subway?
No. Again, this is pre-COVID, but excuse me. In the morning, people would have their laptop bags, and I would be riding half the ride with someone's elbow like in my hip.
Yep.
Because they're holding their bag. And like you really can't do anything. And there would be times when the subway would be too delayed, and I would just like muscle my way on the train, but I could barely move. I couldn't get my iPhone even out of my bag to look at my phone.
Okay. Because in Mexico, what happens is, you get the morning and the afternoon rush. This is also before, pandemic.
Sure.
And, it would be that sort of thing of literally Mexicans forget the laws of physics. They forget that there's only a finite amount of room in each of those each of the carriages.
Yeah.
So, you see the metro pull up and you're like, oh, I'll get the next one. And yet you get 20 Mexicans trying to push their way into it.
Well, in Japan, I haven't been to Japan, but I've seen it online and on television. They have subway pushers in Japan.
Yeah.
And they will just keep cramming the people in. That must be a very unpleasant commute.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I always kind of had that thing of, okay, I'll just wait until I can get one. And the first time I tried that, it took me, it's like, okay, 30 minutes I had to wait to get one that I could basically squeeze on. So I was like, okay, so that's how, and I was late to give a class. So I was like, okay, got to get on it no matter what. That's the mentality you develop.
That's usually what happens probably.
And, I got on and, got on and I was able to kind of force my way to a spot where I wasn't going to get, elbowed, punched or anything like that. Got on and we got to the next station. Half the people got off so you could breathe.
Oh, okay.
Then the station after that, basically twice the amount of people you could ever expect to get into a subway carriage all got on. And there's something where, you've got to basically twist yourself into a very strange position.
Yeah, it's like human Tetris.
Yeah, exactly. Which in the morning in winter, like during winter, great. In the middle of summer in Mexico City, at the end of the day, if you get in the wrong position, you're going to end up with one hell of a big, fat, stinky armpit right there.
Yeah, or even in New York City. And sometimes the subway air conditioning doesn't work, but like I have to be somewhere. And, it's like all I could do not to throw up, because it's so hot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think whoever invented the subway was like, sadist on some level.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So this is another question I ask. Like, it's not a question I ask a lot of authors, but it's one I am curious about.
Okay.
Okay. So you probably know the whole discussion about, are you a pantser or a plotter, right?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm half and half.
Okay.
I'll do a very rough outline and then I'll pants the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
For the most part, I'm a pantster. However, on another novella I wrote, it was very strange. The last publisher was a crime fiction publisher, but they wanted a dystopian novella in my book. And it was like, I know, but like I had a contract and like, I should have really been like, why? Or maybe I was like, why? But I guess they're like, we're trying to change direction, or I don't know. But so I mentioned it because, hold on, I lost my train of thought. Don't you hate that? Oh,
you're a pantser.
Yeah. Okay. So except for the novella, because when I was writing it, I mixed up the last names of characters. I reversed them. So
okay.
From there on in, I keep notes for novellas, but it's not an outline per se.
Okay.
But it was like 7 pages of notes.
Whoa.
Yeah. Well, the novella was like a 20,000 word plus novella. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Still, that's pretty impressive as far as as notes for a novella goes.
Oh yeah, but it's like the stream of consciousness, but it's like, remember this character has blue eyes, or it's usually something more complex, but so
yeah, of course.
That way I don't screw things up.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense.
When it's published.
Yeah. Okay, and so when it comes to like short fiction, then you just kind of come up with an idea and then just run with it and kind of go, okay, when it's done, it's done.
Well, what I do is like, I've heard that Stephen King does first draft and he doesn't edit it until he like puts it aside for maybe a week or less because he's so prolific. And then he goes back to it with an editor's eye. I mean, obviously he has his own editors, there's publishers, but I do something similar. Obviously, I'm not that well known yet, but I like to think of myself as up and coming. But so what I'll do is I'll do like a stream of consciousness kind of first draft. And right now I actually got a nudge from an editor for a gore anthology.
Ooh.
Another gun story of mine. It's entitled 38 Special.
Good title.
I can mention because it's coming out probably sometime this year in the anthology. It might be next year. But I'm almost done with the draft to send him because he wanted me to change some of the plot. It's the game Russian Roulette, but it has a twist.
Ooh.
Yes, because I saw The Deer Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote the story a while ago and then I shelved it because it didn't find a home. But after I saw that movie, The Deer Hunter, I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely need to write that into a story. Like, obviously not in Vietnam, like the way that film is, but.
Well, yeah, no, that would be a little too, blatant theft.
Yeah, exactly. But just, I do get inspiration from, like either other authors or other like nuggets, like
Yeah.
not like their ideas or anything. So
Oh no, but no, I get that. I mean, I do the same. I kind of, I'm a big movie guy. I read a lot, but I'm more in regards to movies. So I'll be watching a movie and I'll just go, okay, that's cool. I could do it like this instead.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I love movies too. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, you don't seem to have a problem coming up with titles.
No, but on that regard, I do change titles. If like I'm writing a story and then halfway through I think that a better title would is more fitting, then I'll just change it before it gets published.
Okay, because like I know some authors, I spoke to Adam Baxter the other day and, like he hates coming up with titles.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the things. Like I know some other authors who I've spoken to and they're like, oh, when it comes to a title, they go, yep, hate it, don't want it, that's like as bad as coming up with a a blurb or a the description,
wow.
for some. So
do they do it like last?
Yes, that sort of thing. Yes, that sort of thing where they'll do a placeholder title, and it could just be a very random, kind of whatever it is. It's just so they can keep track of projects, and then at the end they'll sit there and figure out the actual title.
Oh wow, it's interesting.
Yeah, for me that's weird because titles are easy.
Yeah, for me they're easy too. But on a similar note, I know another author, but now his or her name escapes me directly. But they'll put placeholders for characters. They won't name them until after they're done.
Oh, okay, that's weird.
Different, right?
Yeah.
I forget who does it. So telling you have a story.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, that's very strange. Different. Yeah, that's yeah. And it does show that we all, there's no one right way of doing this.
Everyone has their own process. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And I mean, I was reading the interview you did for Women in Horror Month, and they asked the question about, how do you keep your creative energy going? And you said you listen to music.
Yes, I do.
Yep. No, I do the same. I'll pick a song and like I'll make a playlist for the soundtrack basically to the story I'm going to write. Doesn't matter what length.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
Do you pick a different style of music for each story, or is it always the same music for everything you write?
Well, I used to back in the day when my computer had a CD-ROM drive and I could play my CDs, but now the newer Macintoshes don't have a CD-ROM drive.
Yeah.
It's like you have to pay extra. So now I stream music, and I just stream a local radio station here in New York. It's called Z100, and they do contemporary. They used to call it Top 40, but they don't call it Top 40 anymore. But it's like what the millennials are listening to, but actually most of it I can tolerate.
Okay, see, I'm a millennial, and I think most of what comes out nowadays.
I put my foot in my mouth.
Oh no. See, I was born in '86, so I'm technically a millennial. But I look at myself. All my mates and I, we kind of go, we're not millennials. We're the generation of DuckTales.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and most of the music coming out now, that all the other millennials like, I sit there and go, well, that's crap. That's not music. Mm-hmm. That's just all auto-tune. Digital crap. It's not good stuff. So oh no, you didn't put your foot in it. I'm happy to I'm happy to blast millennials until the cows come home. Okay, so for you then it's like just white noise basically.
No, actually, I know a lot of other writers in my writers group, the New York chapter of the Horror Writers, but like I said, we meet monthly. Some of my writer buddies, they only could listen to instrumental music when they're writing, or else they get sucked into like the lyrics.
Oh,
but
okay.
I almost always need lyrics in the background for
Okay,
my
so
my
okay,
muse to really get going, I guess.
okay. So I mean, I'm the same. I honestly, I can listen to instrumental stuff like soundtracks from movies and all that. That's great, and I can same thing. I know authors who are like, no, can't have any lyrics. So it's got to be 100% instrumental.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is either they get like they get distracted, like like the ones that they get distracted by the lyrics or anything.
Yeah.
So then why for you do you need to have lyrics? What is it about that side of it, hearing a human voice?
No, I guess it's just how my brain is wired.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, when I was a little girl, I would like have my clock radio set to shut off an hour later, but it would be playing music because I was falling asleep.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, see, like the ones, let me try that again. I haven't had the morning coffee yet. That's all. That's what it is.
Oh no.
It's okay.
Okay.
I got a whole day ahead of me. I can have it anytime.
Okay.
But I mean, listening to music or having background noise makes perfect sense. For me, it gets me to focus on what I'm writing. That's what I use it for. Also, when I can go to a cafe, sit down, no headphones, and just the natural sounds around me, that will get me there. Music sets the scene. The ones I think are real crazy are those authors say, no, complete silence.
Yeah, I know a few of them, and I'm like, oh wow, how does that work? Because some of them have families, and they say, oh well, I write when the kids are still asleep, very early in the morning or late at night. And I said, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. But for me, like the idea of writing in complete silence without any noise, to me, that just seems I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I can't do it either. And it's a little aside. Was the weirdest thing, but when I moved to my last apartment in Bay Ridge, it was a very small building, and some of the cable service providers, one called the Dish Network, and it's actually a satellite dish on the roof. And I mention it because it was screwing with my radio signal on my old-fashioned antenna radio.
Oh no!
Literally, so I had to figure out to find streaming on my computer. Because like the landlady wasn't gonna stop using that service for her TV.
Okay, so
isn't that crazy though? Like you never think, but I had to figure it out, like the process of elimination.
Oh well, of course, and I mean, the big one everyone goes to nowadays is Spotify to stream music.
Yeah, I use iHeartRadio.
Oh yeah.
Because it's free, but I know about Spotify.
Yeah,
for sure.
I've done the free version of Spotify. I've done the premium version of Spotify, and I go back to free mainly because I don't care if there are ads. Some people I know hate the ads on the free version of Spotify. I just don't care.
Yeah, no, you can ignore them. Like I have a weather app on my phone, and they the Weather Channel, and they want me to go premium. They block you for a minute till you exit out, and I'm just like, yeah no, why?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And also, I don't use Spotify a lot. If I'm going to listen to music, I've got a massive iTunes library that I'll just
definitely.
Actually, I think I spend a little bit more time putting together a soundtrack than I do actually writing at times.
Oh, but hey, if it gets you in the creative zone, it's
that's
worth
it. Well, that's it. I mean, like right now, I'm working on an outline for a book, which is just giving me hell. I think, but
oh yeah, why?
I sold the story to Severed Press. They're the publisher I kind of work with the most. It's a creature feature. I sold them this.
I think the author I mentioned earlier, Rick Poldark.
Yeah, he writes for Severed.
Right?
Yeah, he's one of the Severed boys. I like Rick. We get along pretty well.
I know him in real life from before the pandemic.
See, that's the thing. Everyone, basically, I've not met all the authors I know. I've only met like this. I've never met anyone.
Oh, okay.
Like face to face. As I said, I started 2018 getting published, and
cool.
Living in Mexico, it's kind of hard to go to conventions because of cost and all that sort of stuff. So, doing this is kind of like, this is how I get to meet people. So,
oh, awesome. Yeah.
And I'm having fun. But this outline is giving me, it's giving me hell just because I pitched an idea, and I like the idea. The idea I'm excited to write. She said I'm having trouble actually figuring, okay, how the hell to tell this story. That's the problem.
Oh, okay. I've
Yeah.
been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that I get a resolution when I'm doing something mundane like the dishes or laundry.
Well, see, that's the thing. Is that like I have my routine. Like anytime I get stuck, I usually go for a walk and all that sort of stuff. But the problem is, you're locked in a hotel room for 14 days.
Yeah, you can't do that, obviously.
Yeah, you can't do that. Doing the mundane things. Well, the mundane things don't exist in here because they deliver your food on styrofoam plates and that. So you got to chuck it. You can chuck it away.
Quarantine, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. So at the moment, it's that sort of stuff thing of and some people have said, look, don't bother working it. Wait until you're out. Wait until you're released into the wild. And I'm getting to that point.
You're going to want to do all of the things.
Well, that's it. But that's the thing. And there's part of me thinks, well, maybe doing all the things will just let it percolate. And because I started working on this outline when I was basically getting ready to move back to Australia. So it's like, yeah, timing was pretty terrible. So maybe I've got to put it aside and just ignore it for a while. Luckily, Severed doesn't have deadlines.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the good thing. Also bad because I need deadlines.
Yeah, just like I mentioned, I just got the nudge from the editor for the Gore anthology. He emailed me in March, and I'm like kind of embarrassed because it's June, like in 2 days. But I wrote back and I said I was busy with some virtual conventions, Heliosphere, which is I've been in real life, and it's in Tarrytown, New York, pre-COVID. And hopefully next year also in Tarrytown. And excuse me, of course, StokerCon we just had. How did you like StokerCon?
Well, funny enough, like for those who don't know about StokerCon, because there probably will be one or two. I was actually on a panel for StokerCon, and this is the funny thing. That was my first panel ever, and my first convention, like my first time at StokerCon as well.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And it was that sort of thing when, like Lee Murray, she told me, oh, look, I've got you on a panel. I was like,
that's the other, she's Aussie as well, right?
New Zealand,
seen her virtual readings, yes.
Yeah.
No, I did meet her at StokerCon. Well, I'll let you finish your StokerCon first, because I've been to a couple, and then I'll share mine.
All right, cool. Like when I was actually giving one of my final classes in Mexico when she sent me the message saying, StokerCon's coming up. I just got authorization to tell you that you're going to be on a panel. And my this one particular class, I wasn't giving it, I was supervising a class, and my face was like, okay, what's the panel about, all that. And she says about podcasts and all this sort of stuff. I'm there going, okay, because I've only been doing this since the beginning of the year. So it's like, okay, great, all right, I'll accept it. She goes, yeah. And you've got to, and if you come to Stoker as well, if you actually do participate in the actual convention, we'll, I'll introduce you to authors and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, awesome. When is it? And she goes, it's May 20, May 20 to this day. And I just went, I'm traveling. I'm flying.
Oh, no, right.
And, she's like, no, it's okay. When you land, what day do you land in Australia? It was May 22nd. She goes, a still have like a couple of days because of the time zone.
Yep.
When you land, get over your, connect and all that. I was like, okay. So, we pre-recorded the panel naturally, which was fun. Had a great time, and I got into the hotel room on, like about 10, 11 a.m. And I sent a message to Lee saying, hey, I'm in the hotel room. She goes, great, connect. I'm in the, Bram Stoker bar. I was like, okay. Completely knackered, tired as all hell. The jet lag was hitting, and it was great. I had so much fun, and going through watching all the like there's very specific panels. I was like, yep, I want to watch that, all this sort of stuff, and just being, my first time being at a convention as an author. It was amazing because I've gone to conventions in Australia for comic books, authors, all that stuff, but as a fan, so it's completely different. Okay. Yeah, it's completely different, and just getting to kind of feel the whole community, that community feeling and all that. It was great. I was like, part of me was like, these are my people. I'm happy.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was amazing. Even though it was online this year, I still had the Stoker Con exhaustion on Sunday because I've done other conventions. World Horror Con back in the day, like in 1998 was my first one. I met Jack Ketchum in real life.
Oh, nice.
A lot of amazing authors, yeah, through the years. But back to Stoker Con, I went to the one in Providence, Rhode Island, 2018. And that was great because myself and other New York writers, we took the Amtrak train to Rhode Island.
Ooh, that would be good.
So yeah, it was good. We had wine on the train. One of my friends checked because like I didn't want to get arrested, like it's like on the Long Island Railroad, you can't drink, for example.
Right.
Which is
okay.
the train I take to visit family from the city. So that was great. And I actually kind of overbooked myself for that one because they had a walking tour of H.P. Lovecraft's, I think it was H.P. Lovecraft, sites where he lived.
Yeah, because he was he didn't really leave Providence at all. So
yeah, so that was pretty wild. It was really bad weather though. The day we did it was like raining and it was like cold, but
mood setting.
And I was on some panels, and then they have Stoker University, Horror University rather, pardon me, and I did a class, but from the description, not to be a snob, but I've been at it for over 20 years, and it was actually stuff I already knew, but I didn't know that from the description that they had.
Oh, okay.
But I guess I chalked it up to be like a refresher, and then it was business expense. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, I met a lot of people that I only knew online. This was before the pandemic. So that was awesome. We did a panel. It was all female horror writers. Myself and Megan Arcuri, April Gray. I forget who else was on the panel, but it was a really packed panel. It was really gratifying.
Well, that would have been that would have been great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is something that does come up a bit with in these chats I do. How important do you think it is to have that community, to have like your tribe, let's say?
Oh, it's extremely important. Like, for example, my mother had to move to assisted living because she's in her mid 80s. So I don't come out to Long Island the way I used to, because it's just my brother and sister-in-law. All my friends, we knew better. We don't live in Long Island anymore. Although actually I do have to throw the caveat in because a lot of people who are going to watch this do know because of the pandemic, I'm back on Long Island. I had to have gallbladder surgery right before New York City shut down.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and my clients, because I'm a freelancer, a lot of them went away. So I've been living at my mother's house, but it's me alone in a house. It's absurd. I'm only using a third of the house. I'm used to living in an apartment. Like, I'm in the dining room right now.
Yeah.
I do have my desk for my apartment, but like some of the rooms upstairs are like a hoarding situation.
Okay.
So I don't like going there really. Yeah, because it's like my brother, I helped him clean out the garage, but like, there's a lot of stuff needs to be done. But I do want to move back to New York City, but it's a process, like a lot of money going out the door at one time. So I do have to say I'm back for a while, but I'm getting a lot of writing done because there's not a lot to do out here when you don't drive.
Well, that's it. So, like that's the thing. In those sort of situations, you might as well just use it to pump out some stories.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. And actually, on a similar note, I had a poem in another anthology that just came out. It's entitled Hell's Mall. And I guess it's backwards. It's a bummer, but it's a really cool cover. It's got a devil on it. And
I saw the cover when I looked up your sorry, I looked you up on Amazon to
okay.
And I saw the cover for that. I went, ooh, that's like I love covers.
Yeah.
Like some anthologies and collections that come out, you kind of sit there and go, Damn, that's a good cover.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I actually have the only poem in the anthology.
Wow.
It's yeah, it's all members of our New York chapter of the Horror Writers Association. I think we're all New York members. It might be other. No, we have I think some authors from abroad. One from Africa, South
Wow.
Africa. Yeah, so it's different takes on a mall, but with a terrifying twist. And
Okay.
my poem is entitled Orange Julius. It's actually a drink. I don't know if you're familiar, but I grew up, yeah.
Okay. All right, cool.
And I grew up drinking it. And so my story takes place in a mall, and this disgruntled worker who used to work at mall Walden Books. It's all like set in the 80s. I like list all of these stores that were in the mall, KB Toys, and it's got a fun rhyming scheme. And again, I don't want to totally ruin it.
No, it's okay.
Like a little taste.
So, I mean, I'm one of those people who I don't really understand poetry. Like, yeah. I can read poems and I can kind of go, okay, yeah, that's a good poem or that's a bad poem just based on what I like. But how can you write a poem that's scary?
Well, it's got the disgruntled employee takes his father's gun and shoots up the people in the mall. And set up, there's a young girl with a red balloon in her mother. And it's like I don't know if I've dabbled in screenwriting, but I haven't had anything optioned or sold. But there's the 3-act rule you probably are familiar with. Like if you use a gun in the first act, you have to use it in the third.
Yeah, Chekhov's gun.
If you use like a cane, like a walking cane, which I do in one of my other stories in the first act, that gets used in the final act. And so yeah, wasn't easy to do, but when I got into the rhythm of writing it, it's just like the characters reveal themselves, which is awesome. Like some of my work takes a lot of cajoling and a lot of revisions, but this poem, I actually wrote it when I was recovering in the hospital when I had my gallbladder out last March.
Okay.
They gave me a notebook, like I didn't have my laptop in the hospital. So like I wrote it over the course of a day or two, and then I only edited it like a little bit, and the editor said it was clean. She didn't edit it, but then she confessed to me, and she said, well, I don't really feel comfortable editing poetry. So. But no, I mean, it wasn't like any egregious grammatical errors, but I don't know. But I actually wrote another poem in an anthology that we have. It's called The New York State of Fright.
Oh, that's a good one.
Came out in 2018. And that one, actually, I wrote in a notebook too, because I was coming out to Long Island when my mother still lived out here. And we used to have the National Guard soldiers. This was right after 9/11. And so there was a very interesting juxtaposition, because the National Guard soldier had his AK-47 machine gun. Oh, you need to.
Sorry, yeah, give me a second. Sorry.
Okay. Sure.
So sorry about that.
Oh no, that's okay. So what I was saying about the other poem, I can tell you the title since it's published. It's Machine Gun Latte. I didn't finish my thought, but that's okay. I'll finish it now. So the National Guard soldier had his AK-47 machine gun slung over one shoulder. And then his other hand, he had a Starbucks coffee. And I just presumed it was a latte for the purposes of the poem, because the juxtaposition of like a latte and the machine gun. It's only 100 words. I'm actually reading it online this coming Thursday as part of a group reading on Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, you can check my website if you're curious, but then there's a whole time zone situation.
Yeah.
I think it's probably happening in the middle of your sleep time, because it's at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
7:30 p.m. Eastern Time is about 9:30 a.m. Australia time.
Oh, right, because we're doing this now. Yeah. So yeah, you could check it out. I could actually email you the link after we're done here.
Yeah, no, that'd be cool. Thank you.
Easier for you. Yeah.
Okay.
We love an audience, There's so many things happening on Zoom, actually. There was like one I would love to go to, another virtual reading, but I'm reading at the same time, so I can't be in two places at once.
Yeah, that is the thing. Like I had that, like, certain, with StokerCon, there are certain things I wanted to go to, apart from being, flying as well. But there were certain things I was like, oh, I want to go to that. But it was another thing happening at the same time. It was like, son of and then,
yeah, but did you see they extended the time?
Yeah.
It's done now. But like I went back and I watched some of the other panels and all.
Yeah, I did the same. Yeah.
Time for.
Yeah, the panels that I missed, I went back and I was able to rewatch it because, being stuck in a hotel, what else are you going to do?
Oh yeah, there you go. So that distracted you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But last thoughts on this year's StokerCon. I did an author reading that was pre-recorded. I don't know if you got to that. I know there was a lot of stuff.
Oh yes, no, I did.
Yeah,
that's what I did watch it. That's why, because when you emailed me about this, I went, I know that name.
Oh, good.
Yes. Oh man, that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing for me.
No, it's not. It's not. And then I pre-recorded a panel, females as villains.
So I watched that.
Yeah, that one apparently got a lot of play. Like people were tweeting about it, so that was pretty gratifying. Like, myself and the other panelists, just like we're clicking and like, we're just riffing and like we were doing that. That was really awesome. Then I had a live panel about dialogue on the Friday of StokerCon. So that was cool. But again, like I silenced my phone, but I was on my laptop. So a friend texted me and everyone heard the ding on my laptop. I'm like, God damn it. But no one said anything because like that happens. Like, I mean, no, like you just got a call, but that was okay because life happens. So like my point is it happens like on every panel, it seems.
Oh yeah, no, there is that thing of being like doing things like this. Yeah, you do have to kind of take into account. Yeah, you will find.
Yeah, life is gonna happen. Like,
oh yeah,
my brother like will show up at the house here unless I tell him I have something like this. But one time he forgot his key for the house and he was like banging on the window and it was for work and I had to like get up and it was like, like I'm on the clock, so I bill by the hour. But the client understood, but it's like he doesn't respect like boundaries sometimes.
Yeah, so. Yeah, that's the problem with dealing with family. Sometimes they don't fully understand that, this is what we have to do. I mean, like prime example, my older brother, when I was living in Australia before I moved to Mexico, I was writing movie scripts. I spent about 10 years trying to break into Hollywood. Obviously it didn't happen, but
yeah, I've heard that's a tough nut to crack, to coin a cliche.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It's that case of it's basically the way it works in Hollywood is a yes until it's a no.
Oh, that must suck. Yeah.
Yeah, you like over the course of that about 10 years of writing movie scripts, I got rejected about 1,500 times. So I'm pretty used to it.
Ouch. Yeah, but you have a tough skin now.
Well, that's it. That's why when it comes to getting rejection for a story, it's like, yeah, okay, that's just move on to the next one. But the thing about, writing is you spend a lot of time where you're kind of like sitting there, like, staring off into nothingness.
True.
Yeah. And my older brother, he doesn't realize that if I'm sitting at my laptop with a Word document open and I'm staring off into space, it means that's me working. He doesn't understand that's part of the job. He thinks, I'm just being lazy.
Right. Oh yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. Like another quick little anecdote. My first apartment, I briefly touched upon it, was my grandmother's apartment, but I lived with her for 9 months, but I actually got a place with a roommate in Manhattan for a little while because she thought she had to be my mother, even though I had like a full-time job that I was going to in Manhattan. I had a key to her apartment and she would put the chain on and I had to wait for her to shuffle over to the door to let me in at night. And I mentioned it because I would come home and I would have dinner with her, but then I would write, and the same thing. And she had this rocking chair near where I was writing. because it was a 1-bedroom apartment, but we had like 2 separate beds in the bedroom, but still she would like just start talking to me because she thought I was not doing anything. So I totally know what you mean. Yeah,
it's a strange job, let's say, or a strange thing to want to do, be a writer, because there's a lot of time where you just spent quiet in your head, and if people don't get that's part of the job, they're either going to want to have a chat because you're not working, or
Right, exactly.
you're a bludger.
Yeah. I totally get that. It's unfortunate, but like my family, I love them, but they're not creative like you and I. So another really brief example. I mean, I do love my brother. You must think I don't, because I keep throwing him under the bus. But he texted me earlier today, and like I said, it's rainy here really bad, but I had to go to the drugstore, and I have tote bags so I can like carry stuff back to the house here. So he texted me, and I already went to the drugstore. He's like, "Do you want me to take you grocery shopping?" And I said, "Oh no, I just got back from the drugstore. I have some writing projects. I have an author interview later." And he said, "Okay." And then I texted him back. I'm like, "You take me tomorrow because it's a holiday, it's Memorial Day." And he's like, "No, Tuesday." And I wrote back, I'm like, "No, I have an interview for a job and I have client work. So I'm going to just walk to the store tomorrow morning with my tote bags." See, that's the thing that doesn't happen here in suburbia. So a quick little anecdote. I mean, it really happened. Is my brother comes over to the house, like I said, and so the neighbors, I know the one guy because he's lived here for years, but the other people are new. And they said to my brother, we see your sister walking home from the store all the time, and you can take that one of two ways. Number one, they're guilting him because they know he drives, or number two, they're like, "You don't do that out here in the suburbs. What is she doing?" I actually had one guy yell at me to get a car. He was driving past me, and I was walking back from a store, and I took the high road because you don't know who's packing a weapon, but I wanted to flip him off. Because one time when I lived in Brooklyn, this guy flew past a stop sign, and I'm walking to do my laundry. So I flip him off, and he starts to come after me. So I don't do that anymore.
Wow, damn.
Yeah, I mean, he was in his vehicle. It's not like he got out of the vehicle, but he was like rolling, like next.
Yeah.
Like, uh-oh. Here's the laundromat. Bye.
Thank you for the armed escort.
Yeah. So.
Wow. Damn.
Yeah, and even today, I was, like I said, when I was coming back from the drugstore, another woman, excuse me, I've got bad allergies. Another woman, she was walking back to her car, which was parked around the corner of the street I live on, and I'm coming around the corner just to walk back to the house. And she gets in her car and she gives me a look like she's mortified that I'm walking back from a store with tote bags because I don't drive. And she gave me a look like, "What are you doing?" And it's like people in the suburbs that want to know everything. And it's like, actually Sarah Langan, I haven't read her book, but it's called Good Neighbors. And it's about that. It's like, I watched one of her chats on Zoom with another, a local library actually. And the plot of her book is that there are these outsiders who move to suburbia, a different part of Long Island, and they don't fit in, and then things get really dark. And I haven't read it yet, and I forget the whole plot, but it's apparently really, really good. It's getting great reviews.
Okay.
And I can relate because I'm the other. And then there's a house across the way, and the guy it's a family, and the guy was standing on his front porch with his hands on his hips, looking at me like I'm a problem. Like, when is she moving out of that house? My brother told like the people around here, because like I said, they need to know everything.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they told him I got sick, and that's why I'm like, I mean, I'm all better now, but so that's why I'm really frustrated to still be here.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a process. But yeah, there's just all of these things that I never would think twice about in the city, and people look at me like, "Why are you walking?" Or I went to Dunkin' Donuts after, again, with tote bags, purchases, and a customer in the store, because the people drive to the Dunkin' Donuts, even though I know ways to get there without getting run over. And this woman looked at me like I had 2 bloody bears on my shoulder, because people don't carry tote bags around here and then go to other stores. I'll stop on that, because you can tell it bothers me.
No, I get that, because even like in Mexico, you see people, going around carrying, 25 tote bags with them, or, they're walking, they're on the buses carrying everything. So you get used to that. So I understand that, because back up in Newcastle, no, you have to drive everywhere. You've got to do that sort of stuff. So, I know for a fact that if I did that, if I, went down and did my, grocery shopping with the tote bags and walked back, people would be like,
that's what's happening to me. And then there's like shortcuts, I know, like, and one is an active driveway to a bank. And so I'm walking back, and it's raining really bad. I have an umbrella. I've got these 2 tote bags earlier today. And this car is coming up, and like, I'm just looking at him like, if you hit me, I'll just take a photo of your license, and then I'll like sue you. And because they didn't even like slow down. They were just like, I'm coming. Because they are, the people in the suburbs have blinders, like not literally, but you know what I mean? It's just like, the brains can't process. And then people backing out of their driveway, I don't trust them. So I'll wait, even though I guess I have the right of way. Like one guy, I'm like going like this to him, because like I didn't trust him that he was not going to hit me.
No, I totally understand that, because I lived in the suburbs up in Newcastle, and then you move to a big city, and you said it earlier. You said you kind of get that sixth sense about what you can and cannot do in a city, where you can go, where you can't go, all that. I got all that too. And then you get a different level living in a place like Mexico, because English is not the language.
Oh, right. That must have been, I mean, obviously, I presume you learned Spanish.
Oh yeah,
you knew it.
I got pretty good with it. I was able to, last year I lived alone, so I was able to, my Spanish got really good, but all that.
I know a little bit of Spanish.
Excelente. But the idea of going, from that sort of thing, where I could, those, the supermarket was really close to me. I could walk with the tote bags, do the grocery shopping for the week, and walk back, no problems.
Cool.
Knowing that, okay, going back to Newcastle, I'm gonna have to get a car, because supermarket's relatively close, but if I went down and then walked back, people would be giving me the, people doing like 70 kilometers an hour up the main road of Newcastle, parts where I need to walk. They're going to be like, what's that lunatic doing?
Yeah, it's I think it's wrong on so many levels. Like, for me to go to Starbucks, there's only one out here. In the city, they're like on every other street corner. And actually, we had a bad winter this past winter. So like for a month, I couldn't go to Starbucks, because like to get Uber Eats Starbucks for one person, it wouldn't make sense. So, but anyway, like that's the main drag out here, that road. And they go pretty fast, and I have to be careful, because if one car is turning, the other one wants to go on the shoulder, and that's where I'm walking. Get to Starbucks.
Jeez, wow.
And I mean, I am isolated out here. Excuse me, when the sun goes down too. It's not like the city where I take the subway to go out with friends or just on my own. That's very disappointing. But I mean, later I'm going to watch Mare of Easttown on HBO Max. It's a really good show, crime show. Kate Winslet did not age well. She plays a detective. And I don't know if that's makeup or hard living, but like she's younger than me. I looked her up. She's like 45. I'm 48. She had like wrinkles and like smoker's lines.
It's probably going to be
makeup.
Yeah, it's probably going to be makeup.
I know, but then sometimes you're like, is it?
Damn. I mean, well, like everything you just told me about your experiences in the suburb, you could really write one hell of a twisted story.
I wrote a poem, but it's not finished yet. I like scrolled it out. Let me see if I can find the notes here. Here it is in a very unfinished form on a piece of paper, and I haven't had time to type it because I've had other writers' deadlines, like the one I mentioned earlier, and then the conventions. So I wanted to do it today, but then they got away from me. I slept in because it's the weekend, and it's raining.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
tomorrow I have to make up for it because, like I said, I have a very busy Tuesday. I'm actually going to get up at 8:30 on a holiday because I have to walk to the store.
Enjoy
do some
all the look,
chores.
everyone staring at you like you're a crazy person.
Well, yeah, because I try to cut through the gas station and like the cars almost mow me down because they're going to get gas, and it's like a shortcut, and it's just like I say to my friends, the suburbs, I hope not, but it seems Long Island is going to be the death of me the way the people drive out here. I mean, obviously, I hope not, but it's, you know what I mean? It's just like,
See, there you go. There's the title of your, when you make it as a big famous author, your autobiography can be Rhode Island was not the death of me.
Yeah, probably. Like when I relocated out here, I had to change my bio because it used to say I live in Brooklyn.
Mm.
And there's actually another writer in our New York chapter, James Chambers. He co-chairs
Yep.
Bram Stoker StokerCon, excuse me, every year. And he lives in the same town. It's not even a town, it's a village.
Wow.
A village is smaller than a town, I believe.
Yeah, it is.
And I actually kind of lost it on our last meeting because one of the writers didn't realize that I'm not in Brooklyn anymore in our group. And they said, no, it's my own personal hell. But then I had to say, sorry, Jim, because he lives here with his family. We're not on the same road, but like pretty close to me. But he went with it. He said, yeah, don't look at the children. Like that. There's the movie where the children are evil.
Yeah, the Village of the Damned. Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I know, but yeah, that's the thing. If you're not used to it, that's the thing. If you're not used to living in the suburbs, it can be hell. I understand that 100%. Yeah.
And it's like what I tell people is, and it's a cliche, but I'm a big fish in a small pond. It's not that I'm better than the suburbs, but I'm bigger. Like I had some new client consultations and they could tell that I'm a city person because they're like, oh, like, how's the pandemic treating you? And like, where are you living? And like, one of them was a referral. So my friend probably told them I'm in the suburbs right now. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in the suburbs, but I don't drive and my friends aren't here. But then I have to stop it there for business because then if you're like a whiner, like to live to work, but anyway.
Yeah.
I got the new clients, so there you
go. That's the important thing.
Stop with the whining.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good to know. That's good. So, I mean, this is the question I ask everyone. Well, I try to ask everyone.
Okay.
And there's going to be there's two versions of the question I'm asking you specifically just because of what you write.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about horror that makes it fun for you to write? And then the same question, but just for thrillers.
Oh, okay, sure. So I'll go with the horror first. It's horror is an emotion. It's then there's different shades of horror. Some of my stories are really gory and violent. And then I have a few ghost stories that have been published. I have a science fiction horror hybrid that's sort of a homage to Demon Seed. I don't know if you saw that movie. In a way it is. It's not a copycat. It's set in the near future. I don't like giving blood. It was published, so I could tell you the title, EV2000. It appeared in Tales from the Canyons of the Damned.
Okay.
Last August of 2020. Delayed because of the pandemic, but it's out there. It's getting pretty good reviews. And I do mainly a lot of psychological horror, though, because, like the sociopaths of the world or the psychopaths are kind of fascinating. And then that kind of goes into crime. It kind of is a good pivot to talk about, I sort of touched upon a little bit, but a little more why I write crime and noir is because the characters, the bad guys, they're like an onion. They have a lot of layers. And it's a bad analogy, I know. I saw you make a face. They're multi-layered, they're complicated. And then you could do a lot with that, like different tics that people have, or they always have to be chewing gum. Like I have the medical examiner in my novella, Rage and Redemption, Alphabet City. similar to you, an author from my group told me about a book, and it's all about the different manners of death.
Ooh.
And what happens to the body. Like, I think your fingernails grow for a couple of days, and most people shit their pants, and men can climax, and
I didn't know that one.
Yeah, so I actually bought the book on Amazon. I went back and I reworked Rage and Redemption a little bit, which is good because now it's out and it can go out in the world again. But the medical examiner in my story is always chewing gum on the scene. Because, like, if you watch movies and TV shows, they don't always wear a mask on the scene of a crime. They probably should. They probably do now because of COVID. But anyway, mine doesn't. But I had to go back and like they dust for fingerprints, and I actually have the language of the whole process of how they do that with tape and like it's like a feather duster and the powder they use. And so yeah, that was really a good resource that another writer in my group told me about, and just different crimes that could happen. Like I said, the doctor in Rage and Redemption in Alphabet City, the scalpel is his weapon of choice, but it gets turned on him. I won't say by whom. Again, that's the first act, third act theory coming into play. And I have stories where rope is the weapon. I mean, you could probably guess that manner of death, but you won't guess the twist. A lot of people, that's the story I have in The One That Got Away. Full comfort. A lot of reviewers said they didn't see the twist until the end, which is always good. Little pun there, twist rope. And then a happy coincidence, Sadie Hartman, Mother Horror, she's amazing. And she reviewed that anthology. And then I totally forgot that the main character was named Sadie. I mean, the publisher got it to her, or someone else did. I didn't like submit it to her, but she DM'd me on Twitter one day, and I was really busy with my day job. And then she just said, "Hi, Amy," and then I had to find her review. But and then I thanked her, and and she said, "Oh, I just love that the main character is named Sadie." Also, she wrote in her review. But I wrote the story before I met her online.
Okay.
So synchronicity, foresight, also, so that's kind of cool when that happens.
Yeah, and that's when you play it cool and say, "Oh yes, I did name her after you."
Yeah, right. I know. And then since you caught my StokerCon reading, I had that story, the cannibalism story. I did a group reading in April online for Heliosphere. And one of my friends told me that one of their friends had to mute me when I was reading because they couldn't handle that story. Perishables, the one.
Oh, that was okay. I will admit that one was pretty rough, but not the roughest.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I kind of like when I read like anything that would be considered like going into more extreme horror, I always compare it to Ketchum's The Girl Next Door, because that's the roughest one.
That. Yeah, I saw the movie too.
Oh, I read the book, and I was like, after reading the book, I was like, I don't think I'll watch the movie, because I know they'd have to censor certain things, so they couldn't go 100% with the movie.
Right,
but
true.
The Girl Next Door is the only book that's kind of knocked me for a couple of days after reading it. It got me really bad. So, anytime,
that was a rough one, definitely.
Oh, yeah. And once again, based on a true crime, which, when I read the actual what happened to in real life, I was like, man, that's,
Yeah, see, people can be really wicked.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, like anytime someone says, "Oh, this is a really, this is really rough." I'm like, "Is it as rough as that?" And they go, "Yeah, okay, no."
Or Ed Lee. Have you read Ed Lee?
Yes, I have.
Did you read The Big Head?
No, not yet. That's not that. I've got to get to that one yet.
Oh, it's very over the top. And funny story, I had the day job at the time, and I would read books like that on my lunch break. So I'm in McDonald's, and this little boy sees the cover because it's like got this misshapen and and he was like horrified. And I don't know, maybe I was almost done eating, or I think they left quickly, him and his mother. Yeah, because again, we don't think of that, right? You people like us, we're just reading on our lunch break in public, but
oh yeah, no, it's amazing what will set some people off. I mean, like, okay, the cover for the big head, to me, that cover is not something that would be, to me, that's, it's a great cover, and it tells you what you're getting. That's the sort of cover you look at, you go, yeah, I know what I'll get with this book. But if I was, in a restaurant, I saw someone reading, that, and I saw that cover, I'd be like, okay, good on them.
Yeah.
Okay, they're reading what they want to read. I'm not gonna cause a hassle or a fuss or
Exactly. Oh no, like they didn't, like the mother didn't, like they didn't talk to me like, what are you reading?
Oh, but I mean, it's more that sort of thing of, my little boy's seen that cover, we have to leave right now. Come on, you can't let the outside forces.
No, some mothers are overprotective,
I think the world's becoming more stupid.
Well, again, that was over 20 years ago when they first came out.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, comparing that to now, then okay. Back then,
I had to clarify that.
Okay, back then
when that was released, I think it was like the 90s, though, like late 90s. So.
Yeah, okay, I kind of understand. Okay, in that context, okay, I understand. Back in that day, it would be shocking. Nowadays, though, come on.
Right. So that's the clarifier there.
Yeah, okay. Well, that makes I'll retract my statement then.
All right, fair enough. Yes.
The last question I ask everyone, this is always the final question I ask, and it's this: someone comes up to you and says, "Amy, I've read your short stories, I've read your poetry, I've read your novellas. You've inspired me to become a writer. What's the one piece of advice that you give them?"
I would say write every day, even if, like I said, when I had a full-time job, I would make notes for a story in the morning. And some writers do that who have full-time jobs too. Like even one of the guests of honors at StokerCon, who wrote Mexican Gothic. I always bungle her name.
Oh,
Sylvia.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about. And I mean, I lived in Mexico for 5 years, and I have trouble with pronouncing names as well. So no, I know who you're talking about.
But I mentioned her because she said in either her interview, like as part of her reading, I think she said, I would do my research on the way to work, but now because of the pandemic, she had to change her schedule slightly. But the main advice I would give to people who want to start writing is write every day, and then read everything, good, bad, like what to do, what not to do, like examples of purple prose, cliches.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, cool. Amy, I would like to continue, but I need to take care of some things.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, me too. I'm going to switch into streaming mode, but can I just say my website?
Yes, please. Actually, I was going to say, where can everyone find you? I was going to say that.
Sure, I read your mind. My website is crimsonscreens.com, and I'm on Twitter, Amy_Grech. So thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, Amy. I'll put all the links to everything in the description. Awesome. It was a great pleasure having you on. I really enjoyed the chat.
Yeah, me too.
I'm happy to have you come on again whenever you want.
Oh yeah, when I have new stuff for sure. And good luck to you with your move after you're out of quarantine and all that.
Thank you very much. All
right, take care. Bye.
Bye. And once again, a big thank you to Amy Grech for coming on today. You can find a link to Amy's work below in the description. And as always, if you have any author you'd like to see an interview, or questions, or just any regular comments, feel free to put them in the comments below, naturally. Until next time, boys and girls, stay spooky.